morning, Guy. Thanks for joining me here today.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure.
Look, I'm talking to you today about your podcast, The Captain and the Clown, which I have to say is a brilliant title, but there are reasons behind that title, which I'm going to let you go into in a moment. You're a co-host of that podcast with Michelle Huntington.
Yes.
So over to you. What does the Yellow Shelf audience need to know about your podcast, Guy?
Okay. Well, Michelle Huntington, my podcast co-host, she's a former airline captain and one of the most courageous people I've ever met. And so I love talking to her about her experiences as an airline captain and as an adventurer. The reason why I'm called the clown is because besides playing sport for a long time, I actually grew up in a circus. Have you heard of Cirque du Soleil?
I have.
It wasn't that one.
I
That's my
know
standard
the one
joke.
it was. Yeah, I know the one you're going to tell me. So even
Yeah,
better.
it was a children's circus. I tell that joke every day, and I'm
Ah,
still waiting for the day I get a laugh.
yeah.
It was yeah. So when I was a kid, I was in the flying fruit fly circus, and I was in that for 6 years, and we travelled around the world performing. I was a clown, juggler, unicycler. I think that's why I ended up becoming a trainer and a speaker, because I fell in love with training at an early age, and I also played sport. I went to the Olympics for water polo, and so in the podcast, Michelle and I both talk about leadership, life, and everything else, and our experiences getting to this point in our lives.
Yeah, awesome. And I know you kind of skimmed over that, but you were a very successful sporting athlete. And no doubt that's helped you transition into the world of training and speaking,
Yeah.
delivering
Oh.
really interesting podcast. Do you want to share it with us? Why would people listen to your podcast? I mean, I'm sure you've got an array of guests. Tell us what we need to know. Yeah. How do you seek out guests? What's your diverse topics?
Well, I've just lost your video. I've got your background, but I don't have
Okay.
you in the video.
Let's check. Let's keep talking. We'll be right.
That's okay. All right. So, our topics. So my company is called New Memory, and we do a lot of professional development training. We've got about 25 different workshops that I've written, ranging from leadership, executive leadership, frontline leadership, establishing leaders, conflict resolution, all the way down to customer service. So in those workshops, we teach a lot of material, and my passion is passing on that knowledge in my company. So New Memory, we do the training. And so Michelle once suggested, hey, why don't we share that information on the podcast, and then we can kind of riff about it. And I thought, yeah, what a great idea, because the more people that get access to the things that we teach in the courses, the better. I personally think the world will be a better place when we all become our best self, the best version of ourselves through learning. And so she suggested that we start doing podcasts, and I thought, what a great idea. We tested it. We had this nice rapport, and Michelle's, like I said, quite an amazing human herself, and she's had so many experiences as an airline captain and her journey becoming an airline captain. We just love talking about things that have made our life better. We like talking about things like confidence. What is confidence? The last podcast we just released was on the difference between having the victim mindset and having agency over self. And so what we do is we just choose a topic that we're both quite passionate about, that we might be reading a book about, and we'll talk about it, and we'll bring in our own experiences. And with regards to the guests that we get on the show, we're just about to release a podcast with Daniel Kowalski. So yeah, the amazing swimmer, 1500 and 400, 200 meter swimmer. And so we're about to release a podcast with him. And what we tend to look for people who have achieved things in their life, whether it be in business or sport, and just ask them about the lessons that they've garnished along the way, specifically around leadership. And so we just find fascinating people everywhere. And the more people we interview, the more people we get to meet and learn. And so yeah, whenever we come across a very interesting or an amazing person, we just say, hey, can we grab you and put you on the podcast? And people seem to enjoy it as well.
Fabulous. And look, I listened to the Victim podcast last night, and I couldn't agree more. Yourself and Michelle complement each other. I mean, you described it as rifting, but it's certainly, I would recommend anyone, to dive in and start even with your latest episode. Guy, I'll put some notes in our show notes, but what's the best way to connect with you? If we're curious about your podcast or curious about connecting with you or Michelle, where do we start?
Okay, so the podcast page, if you go to captainandtheclown.com, so captainandtheclown.com, the full word and, you can go to our business page, our business website, newmemory.com.au, and then we've got a podcast page on there, or you can find us on all of the different streaming services, Spotify, Apple, etc. So we put it up everywhere, Captain and the Clown, and follow us on LinkedIn. We've got a page on LinkedIn as well.
Yeah, you know what? That's how I nearly discover all my dives into podcasts. I think LinkedIn's a great space. So, Guy, thank you so much for your time today. I'd highly recommend anyone, give you a listen and provide us some feedback maybe in our YouTube channel. But have a great day, Guy.
Thank you, Joanna. Lovely to meet you.
Cheers.
Take care.